Now, Tales of Time, featuring Charlie Atkins, George Goggin, Zaron Lane, and Ben Shields.
Tales of Time. Geschichten der Zeit. Tales of Time. Geschichten der Zeit.
Tales of Time.
Tales of Time. Tales of Time. Tales of Time.
Once upon a time, a long time ago, 40 years, I was working in the Middle East, helping to recover fossil fuels indirectly. Part of my role involved supervising a workforce based on offshore installations in the Arabian Gulf. Don't be confused, it's not the Persian Gulf, it's the Arabian Gulf. I had to take wages in cash for groups of employees on different rigs in the Gulf by helicopter, and sometimes carrying as much as £250,000 in cash in the local currency. I always travelled to and from the base on shore using a Bell Jet Ranger 2A helicopter piloted by a former South African Air Force officer working as a civilian. We landed on a rig one day which had been evacuated apart from supervisory staff due to a hydrogen sulfide leak, so we needed to be gone fairly quickly. I deposited my wages to be distributed and then found that the helicopter would not restart for whatever reason. The pilot suggested that we should bump start it by attempting to turn the rotor by hand, waiting for him to turn on the starter. Unfortunately, I had not long before broken my arm, left arm, a colleague's fracture, whilst playing football in a team representing England against another team representing Scotland. We lost. Back to the story, we were unsuccessful in starting the motor of the Ranger, and in the end had to resort to searching in the bowels of the rig for a long enough length of cable to connect the motor to the power supply on the rig. We succeeded and left to return to base.
Okay, so we used to do this walk from Herne Bay to Faversham, which is quite a long walk. It's about 13 miles. So what we used to do was the night before we would go in 2 cars down to Faversham. Matt would park the truck and then we would travel back in my car, so that the following day, once we'd finished the walk, we wouldn't have to walk 13 miles all the way back again. We would just be able to drive back. So we went with the dog, with Demon, and did a lovely long walk, but it was February, so nothing was open. Couldn't stop for a coffee or a cake or anything like that because it was out of season. So we got all the way to Faversham before we could actually find anywhere. And the way that it goes in Faversham, you come in via the building yard, the shipyard basically, or boat yard I suppose it is rather than a shipyard. And there's a really old pub that's right alongside it. Faversham is a brewing town, very, very old town with many, many old pubs and breweries. And this particular one, I'd say it's probably about 300 years old. It was right on the edge of the dockyard. So we went in, and I said, right, well, we're not going to be able to take the dog in, so you wait out here, I'll go in, get a couple of drinks and bring them out. But when I went in, it was just wall-to-wall dogs. It was like however many breeds you can think of. There's dogs all over the place. Like it's a dog pub, and they just happen to have brought their humans with them. So we went back out, got Demon, brought him in. Of course, he immediately starts to try and play with all the other dogs. There's a really old, cramped pub, and he's trying to do the touch noses and run round and round in circles. So we had to kind of calm him down, put him under the table, and he went to sleep. And we had a really lovely meal, a nice glass of wine, and then Matt drove home. It was a very fond memory. We went back to that pub quite a few times. I like doggy pubs. They've got a good vibe.
It was a few days before we had to put my dog Demon down, and we were discussing when and why we were going to do it. And we had discussed before that Demon didn't seem happy anymore, and that all the movements seemed very hard for him, and his tail wasn't moving anymore. He didn't want to go on walks. He got very little enjoyment from food. He had quite bad arthritis, and he was blind and deaf, and it didn't seem fair to him to keep him alive anymore, because that would cause him a lot of pain and would be very unpleasant for him. So we were spending the days before, we had already booked the appointment. We were spending the days before with him, making sure that he was okay, and basically just sitting and crying with him, because it was the very last days we had with him. We had ordered a Chinese, and we were giving the food to him, and he was really enjoying that. But that was the only time I had seen him wag his tail, like properly, in quite a while. I mean, he had a dog's tail, so it was not very exaggerated movement, but it was still more than he usually had. And we were making sure that we were all going to be there for him in his last moments. We had all agreed that we were going to be in the room and make sure that we were going to comfort him. I had bought him this massive box of beef dog treats to give to him as the injection was going in and everything. But to have that dog for 14 years of my life was an amazing thing, and it was very hard to say goodbye to him.